What are we visiting today, Scott?
Today we are visiting the first thing that any passerby sees when they look down at an active Raw Deal game. That's the backstage area. Usually purple cards sprawled all over the place. Some play them, some don't. Shenanigans. Basically, they are rules for the game. Essentially, that's what we classify them as. Otherwise, they have no real effect on the game. So I can see players walking up saying, oh, look at all these cards with 15 lines of text on them. I'm automatically losing interest. And we're like, really? They're just like alterations or to current cards or rules of the game that everyone knows and follows. That's why some people play them, some people don't, because if you don't play them, it's just, I gotta dig them out of a battle bag if you really want to read them or reference them. But for the most part, they stay the same. We all know what they do. Yeah.
So, like, let's look at like a card like Enough Shenanigans. It blanks a lot of negative cards from the classic versions. So, like, the following cards are blank. Calling You Out, the Stipulation Inferno match. It's all about the game. The non-throwback version of Premier WWF Superstar / WWE Superstar, because they didn't update that to be overturned. You just take the number of cards from your deck and put on the into your ringside. Run the Gauntlet was a big issue with Enforcers. You just keep cutting the deck and overturning cards. And then specifics like You'll Kill the Beat, which is pretty much you can't play any pre-match cards, and Piper's Pit. And Revolution Judgment Day. I'm not familiar with that one though. So that's an example of what these backstage area cards, the Shenanigans line of backstage area cards, it's just they're erratas rather than referring to a rules page. You just reveal these with your deck. You can just leave them in a stack somewhere, because when you're familiar enough with virtual, you're going to realize that you don't need to read these every time, because everyone's building their decks around all of these effects. They also modify playability, so like who's cooler than Michelle McCool? I mean, when there's a deck that can play 6 of them, that's a real headache. So now you're limited to playing 3. Skirt the issue. You can't play if you have
D1.
D1 or greater or pre-match cards.
Bash cards, they have to be bash.
So like so D1 plus bash, so like a bash diva is really good because she's getting those 3 reversals from mid-match.
Right away.
Anything really stand out for you that was like a big change?
What a big change was when they initially came out with the Shenanigans cards. They had drawbacks, like they took up space in your backstage area card for cards like Backstage Shenanigans. Some of them had a -1 hand size, so people wouldn't reveal them in certain scenarios because they didn't want the 1 card hand size unless they thought their opponent was playing It's All About the Game. So that was interesting when they first came out, but now they've kind of axed that and said, listen, these are just pretty well all in play. They have no real outside effect on the game. They're all RMS. They can't be blanked. They are what they are. I was thinking on the way over, it'd be neat if they somehow had like the cards look great themselves, but like a printout or something that just had these rules listed on them. That's kind of like on a playmat or something, or like I don't know where I'm going with this, but I know like in Pokemon they have like a token because there's a special type of Pokemon attack, and like when you use it, you flip it over. So it's just like an extra piece to the game. Some people may not want to carry around extra parts to lay out, so the cards are their thing, but like I don't know, something that's just there, right, all the time that you can reference. But then again, they change it. You have to update whatever this piece of thing is. Yeah, so scrap that idea. But it was just something that popped in my head on the way over.
But even this, like, you don't have to sprawl them all out like you've seen videos online, or you walk past, you're meeting up with an old friend that is playing the game, and you see, 7 of these, 3 back signature cards.
Yeah, 2 anniversaries. And that's not counting specifics, which most have 2 of.
So you're looking at 14 backstage area cards, and that's intimidating. That really ruins the idea of wanting to get into virtual. But it's not as bad as as it looks. It's better for the game. It changes. This is kind of like the foundation of what virtual is.
Yes,
where you see this, it's like, okay, I can do these now. I don't have to worry about these negative effects.
Exactly.
Like what else? Like Andre the Giant. Like they
watered down Andre, Piper, and Kennedy, who were the big three, and Eugene. JBL took a little bit of a hit, but they give them other things to do as well, right? It's not just like the superstar is way too good, we're gonna axe them. No, they're like, okay, we're gonna blank his ability, but give him some other good support cards.
I think another good example is all players' straight shooting interview cards are active and not considered to have shoot in the title for their card effects. So if you want to play shoot counter, you have to have a different card with shoot in the title, so you can't do that bash straight shooting interview in the shoot counter.
You have to earn it a little bit.
It's good. Don't have this have a negative impact on wanting to approach virtual. It's just one of those necessities
it's the easiest way to make the game player friendly.
And you don't always have to refer to, please visit this FAQ to see what cards are.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like you just sleeve them, include them in your deck. Just don't expect to use one of those original Raw Deal deck tins because
they don't fit.
It just won't fit. And then with the Backstage Area as well, they've added a lot of non-specific cards, like dynamically inclined, where before you draw your hand, you search your deck for 10 dynamic maneuvers, draw your hand, put one of the dynamic maneuvers into your hand, and then shuffle the remaining back into your arsenal. So you're not drawing into all these unnecessary hybrid maneuvers. They added a 10th year anniversary that works alongside the 5th year anniversary. They have a new signature card that increases your hand size rather than affecting super
both players' hand size.
Yeah, both players play hand size. So both you and your opponent are playing. It's +2 hand size, and it could have strategic elements to it where you want to increase their hand size, so you could put overrated superstar into play, which is a mid-match action, 0 for 1. If they have 13 or more cards in their hand, they randomly discard 3 of them. And there are other card effects. Well, I mean, we'll visit that when we talk about mid-match. But there are a lot of the buzzers go.
And that's the show, guys.
Damn, we're out of time. It's just there are a lot of elements that make the game more accessible, but at the same time, there are some elements that could look frustrating or be frustrating when you're getting into it. But that's anything when a game adds new elements or kind of getting into a new game with what this is, because it's a more aggressive game. It's easier to get fortitude. I mean, you say that to anyone. We're like, well, there's this one game I played, I got 0 fortitude. Well, it's like, no, but I mean, you can build your deck where it's like, I'm getting a guaranteed 3 or 5 fortitude, and then you work from there.
I mean, any heal deck should get Dirty Low Blow and Douchebag somehow.
The new Dirty Low Blow is great. I mean, it's a mid-match unique maneuver. When you're lower, it can only be reversed from Arsenal. Like, that's so good. Like, it's not getting hit by, like, it's great to be back here.
I don't think anything reverses it.
No.
It could be wrong, but I don't think anything hits it.
Oh.
So yeah, there's that. And then Douchebag, enough people play Chain and can only be reversed. You're more than likely to spin it at some point, and then it goes in your ring. So there's 4 fortitude for you.
So do you have anything else to add on this?
There are probably close to a dozen like non-superstar specific shenanigan cards. You touched on, I forget which, Dynamically Inclined. There's the Revolutionizing the Women's Division, Pulled Enough Strings to Get My Match, which is like if you have a really important stipulation you want to put in play, you can reveal that one. It has a few drawbacks. I believe you can't play venues or managers. The other specifics are kind of like, does my deck need this, or do I really want to stop this, right? Don't Be That Guy is a card that doesn't allow your opponent to pin you with like wins the game text on cards, right? But at a cost of giving up other non-specific Backstage Area cards. So.
And there's Hometown Hero that where if your opponent has a venue, you get to play a venue by
Right, yeah.
taking a -2 card hand size.
Yeah.
So it's a lot less disruption now. It's more options where it's like, I'm building my deck like this, and I'm going to be able to play my deck like this.
Yeah, so look out for those non-specific ones, because a few of them do have really great bonuses if your deck really wants those cards in play at a little bit of a cost. Yeah. I don't really play them much. Usually I just reveal a 10th anniversary so I don't get backstage shenanigan into skipping my first turn. But if I play old school wrestling match, which I do usually, and have one of my 6 decks of old school wrestling match, I just reveal everything because turns can't be skipped, so I have no fear of running into that. So. Yeah, I think that's it for Backstage Area for me. Don't get overwhelmed. Within time, you will learn them all and learn that they really have the same impact on every game of Raw Deal that you play.
And we're finding in our play area too, like there was not so much a divide, but like you had players that didn't really see tournament success in Classic. Now with Virtual, it's new for everyone. Pretty much any superstar is a good option with the specific support they've received over the last 8-9 years of how long Virtual's been in. Like we've had Road Dogg win 2 events, and it was with a player who prior to that had never won a Raw Deal event in the 13 years of him playing. And it's Virtual's great. And with newer superstars, but I mean we'll visit that later on. But it's like if he's on TV now or she's on TV now or they as a tag team or a stable of people were on TV, you're probably going to find them. Except the oddities.
Yeah. We'll never
never
see the oddities. Today we're going to talk about the Backlash deck, but I think we're just going to focus on pre-match because that's where the majority, I think, of the non-specific cards came was in the pre-match and mid-match. So we're going to break it up, just do pre-match today. We'll see how far we get 4 minutes at a time because we've got about probably 20 what we figure are key cards or staple cards. Before we get into that, I see your notes down here. Just want to talk that there is a new phase, Allegiance phase, which means that's the first phase that starts the pre-match phase. It goes Allegiance, Venue, Feud, Stip, Manager. And with that Allegiance phase came an increase in the Backlash deck size to 12 and 12, and you play 6 and 6, so that's not really in the rules anywhere, so people coming into the game are like, oh, it's not 10 and 10 anymore. No, it's now up to 12 and 12, and you play 6 and 6. Technically, you play 6. You'll see when we're reviewing these cards, a lot of them play for free. You put them into play. They don't take up slots, so you can end up getting 12, sometimes 13 and 14 if you're packing hybrid match ones into play. So it is probably the longest phase of the game now, which is interesting because it sets the tone for the game. But as I was saying, we played a tournament a few weeks ago and one player was John Cena, and like no games lasted 12 rounds with his 12 rounds card. So yeah,
like I've been in the last few decks, to get a little off this for a moment, I built AJ Styles a new Nexus, and they're deliberately very short on the pre-match phase. So I find that I found a few opponents at the underwhelming part of my pre-match became overwhelming because they're like, well, what do you do with your deck? You resolve one pre-match card and like a backstage signing appearance. So it's like, what the crap is going on here? But the decks are also good. So I mean, your virtual decks don't need to be very pre-match focused in order to be successful, depending on your superstar as well.
But again, there are cards that like don't take up slots or that you put into play where there's really no reason not to play them if you have the room and space and don't want to.
So there are 96 non-superstar specific pre-match cards in the virtual. Backstage Area was 43 non-specific, and mid-match cards there are 36. Non-specific.
So combined, there's close to 130.
Yeah.
Just over 130.
And you don't need them all. Don't go out and print everything. Some of these I don't think you'd ever have a use
Yeah,
for.
some I've never ran, and then some I have 6 copies of. So it's interesting.
And for reference, it's plug day.
Sure.
For reference, I'm using the SoCal Raw Deal Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
They have images of every virtual card. You could go to albums. You could search by like pre-match, mid-match, backstage area, superstar card support. They're all albums there.
Mm.
But also they have albums for every superstar in virtual and all the cards with them. I actually use this sometimes rather than going through the documents from Team Canada Online. If I need a card or two, I'll actually go here and then slap it onto my page I'm going to print.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the cards they're pulled from the documents.
Now that you mention it, that's probably what I'll do too. Because Keith shared his all his alternate art Revo stuff, and I figured out how to copy it into Word. He gave me the size to do it. It's like 8.89 centimeters or whatever. It auto sizes the width. So it's perfect, and if you're already printing a sheet, it just slips it right in there. So
yeah, no, I actually use this a lot. It's a great reference, and especially all the updates.
Yeah, they do that right away.
So it's I needed the new Shenanigans card, and I just pulled it from here just because I was in a rush. It was one of those. It's okay, resize, done.
Yeah.
SoCal Raw Deal, which you've played with the guys down there.
Yes, I have a few times. So it's good.
It's good.
Check them out.
Back to pre-match.
Yeah. The new Allegiance phase, there's probably 7 or 8 allegiances, but I think there's 4 that are popular. I'm lining them down for us to see, not for you guys to see.
If you're watching on YouTube,
we'll pop them up.
They will pop up here like a card right now. I don't know what card it will be.
I think the most popular one is I'm always on the winning side, my side. It plays for free. You get a +1 hand size. +1 pre-match. I'm just gonna pick it up. And +1 mid-match. At the end of the pre-match, you can put 1 card from your ringside pile on the bottom. So that's usually what most people do, but it also has an additional ace that you can randomly remove 1 card in your ringside pile from the game. That's the activated card effect. And then randomly discard 2 and search for a non-unique maneuver. So I've seen decks that have done this for pump kick. If they somehow want to get it in their hand and then their opponent plays something that gets it out of their hand, they can do this and still get a pump kick again. It basically plays for free and gives you +1 hand size. So and in a pinch searches for a maneuver. So if you're I could use an allegiance or I could use a bigger hand size, that's usually a go-to card.
It's a great just pre-match filler. Where it's I need another pre-match card. When in deck construction I don't have an allegiance. Well, this gives me +1 hand size and plays for free, so why not?
And you can't pack factions, GRAs, or ECW, WCW, or NWO cards, but that's not really a big drawback. Unless you're building a deck around those, then you're probably running one of those allegiances anyways. So,
I've had recent success with McMahonism, so you're aligned to the McMahons. Where the first time during each of your turns, if you would draw cards outside of your draw segment, you can look at that many cards from the top of your deck and choose to put any number of them on the bottom and then the rest back on the top. I was running Kevin Owens, where if the opponent reverses from hand, you get to draw a card, and then there's a pre-match card called from NXT to WWE. Whenever you would move cards from your ringside pile, or draw cards for your superstar ability. If you're an NXT superstar, you increase those by 1. So Kevin Owens would draw 2. I just look at the top 2.
And pick what you want.
It's great. And if you're one of the McMahons, except Stephanie, she's not on here. Makes sense though because of the enforcers she would get. You can use it during your draw segment instead.
Yeah, and it's great for abilities like Victoria and RTC where they shuffle or put their hand on the bottom, draw a whole new hand. Drew McIntyre's another one. You can literally pick the good stuff and bury the bad stuff and bring it up. So.
And you have the NWO t-shirt. Your run-ins are -3. You get a play kind of easier playing on your NWO if you know cards. Another thing with these allegiances is they have cards associated with it, or there's a card pool that you can only play them if you have these allegiances in play, which is really nice.
And NWO we've seen kind of with FBI, they have some run-ins. Spike Dudley may try it. Again, it has a bunch of run-ins, so with no DQ match, you can make your run-ins -6, so it's pretty effective. Saturday night's main event, that's one that we've seen popular in Legends. Or WWF Superstars. Basically, it doesn't take up a slot. Your starting hand size is +1, just like always on your side. And when you're a WWF Superstar and have lower forward-tude, you can double your numbers in the classic maneuvers. So a little bit of a boost there.
They're filming. Leave them alone.
Oh, never mind. You don't double them. When you successfully play one of them, your opponent discards 1 or removes 2 cards in your ringside pile. Elliot just got home. He's gonna come check us out and say hi.
Hi,
Sure, come on down. We just finished the Allegiance phase, so we can edit this part out. Moving on to the venue phase, I picked out 2 venues that I've seen increase in popularity recently. Dubuque, Iowa. It's a new card from the last virtual set. Should we go through all the text? It does so many great things. But basically, whenever you successfully play a 40 or greater maneuver, you get to shuffle in a card from your ringside pile.
Once a turn.
Once a turn, and you can ace it to reverse any RMS card when you have 10 or greater fortitude, and it counts as a hybrid reversal. So it stops Atomic Lariat, Precision Haymaker, that kind of stuff late game.
The drawback it has is it ignores any recovery effects from other pre-match cards in play.
Yeah.
So you don't get it with like Handicap Match or Rochester, New York.
Or through all these years, WrestleMania, some of the bigger cards. But if you know you're going to be consistently playing 40 or greater maneuvers, it might make sense to run it. And then the other one, Madison Square Garden, it's kind of pairs with WrestleMania, really. Doesn't take up a slot. Your hand size is +1, another card to boost your hand size. When you ace WrestleMania, you remove WrestleMania from the game. And the drawback to that is that your opponent gets to keep 1 card in his hand when you shuffle your hand and super set value back. But there's so many ways to overcome that. Like if you're running the Mean Gene and you can draw into who booked this match, you can make them discard 2, or you have a discard ability like Chris Jericho, you can make them discard right off the bat. So, yeah, those are probably the 2 most popular venues.
Feud, the big standout feud I find is Tech in a Bottle.
Huge in our area.
I mean, you're searching for like a chain heat volley, face heel, blindside precision, technical card, maneuver. You're putting it under Tech in a Bottle, and then when it's in play, you could put Tech in a Bottle in your ringside pile, and you're playing that card as if from hand. So big thing is you're searching for a quick snap body slam, 0 for 4 chain grapple. You're playing it with the new mid-match card Flawless Transition. It's a 0 for 0 chain. Acts like a panic. You're playing both. Opponent has to reverse both. So that's almost a guaranteed 4 fortitude because they have to discard 2 for each and then play a reversal to each. So that's 6 cards potentially from hand. But also you don't have to search for a card. Instead you put this card on top of one of their pre-match cards and it's blank until the end of their turn.
Yeah, I think the biggest drawback is that it's only for 1 turn. I don't think you could really do it for 2 or 3 turns because then you have to keep track somehow, and probably doing it for the whole game would just be ridiculous.
No, just add dice to the game.
Yeah.
You'd love that.
So yeah, I've been tinkering around with like what you could do with that, but I still just like searching for that 0 for 4 chain or that key blindside to start the game. Really, whatever you need, right?
Like this is great in characters that can protect moves. Big freaking machine comes to mind because you can search for like an 0 for 6. New Nexus. Even guys, I can't think of anything more offhand really, but it helps you get that 0 fortitude maneuver, and they can't do anything to this card. It's permanent RMS. They can't blank it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about drawing into your hand and drawing into nothing. And that's a big theme with the virtual pre-match is like, okay, it's helping me get that early fortitude.
Yeah.
And let's just skip ahead a bit. And then we're to think about the name of the game is wrestling. No, wrestling is...
Marquee?
Marquee says wrestling, where it's like if you have 7 or less fortitude, your grapples and submissions can't be reversed by hybrids. Opening volley, where it's, if your fortitude rating is less than 10, he can't reverse your volley maneuvers from ring or remove cards to the volley trait.
Yeah.
And that's
So when you combo those with Tech in a Bottle, it makes them easier to get fortitude.
Yeah, it's just, that's something I want to stress with virtual as well, where like the game has shifted from that red walling, controlling the early game, where it's like, okay, everyone's generally going to get that early fortitude. How do you play your mid game to late game?
Yeah.
How am I going to throw 5 trademark finishers at my opponent who's going to sustain them all down and overturn reversals to each?
Yeah.
But let's visit the kind of the 3 pretty impactful
Stipulations. Yeah. So for your tag team, handicap match got thrown back. Again, starting hand size +1. We're seeing a theme here. Your opponent's starting hand size is -1. Pre-match and mid-match are +2. And once during each of your turns, which probably 50% of players forget, when you reverse a maneuver from hand, you can put a random card from your ringside pile under the bottom of your arsenal. And then the drawback, you can't play champ is here, but has the same effect. Doesn't get hit by For the Love of the... Actually, it does get hit by For the Love of the Game because it's tag title. Yeah. Never mind. But yeah, so it basically just replaces champ is here if you are a tag team. And if you're a tag team with lower superstar value, you don't have to worry about him playing a belt first. You can pull some strings to get in the match and make sure that gets in play.
And yeah, there are a lot of stables in the game, so I mean, if you're playing one of those that can play, again,
A
numbers game, you're guaranteed to get that. Because it's great in tag teams. But I mean, if you just want to play stables all day, here's my +2 pre-match, +2 mid-match, you can't do anything about.
Exactly. And then the other 2, which I think have made a little bit more of an impact on the meta, old school cage match and old school wrestling match. If you don't know what they do, these are the 2 cards that you probably need to learn in Raw Deal. In virtual Raw Deal. Old school wrestling match, if any player's turn ends without playing a maneuver, he has to overturn 6 cards. So that's just the aggression rule and
from virtual
Revolution.
From Revolution.
Yeah, and then turns can't be skipped, etc., etc. So it's not, you can't really abuse it. Gets a little bit of a boost if you're back to basics in your ring area. Basically, it makes the game pick up the pace a bit, right? So games aren't lasting 12 turns when you're throwing big moves at each other all game, which is what the wrestling game is about. It's kind of annoying if your deck isn't built around that or doesn't have enough maneuvers to have to overturn 6. And it seems like you always lose a key card in those 6, right? You'll spin your divine when it's not your opponent's turn or something, and then suddenly it's in the ringside, and you're like, ah.
Well, and because of the stipulation card, it kind of shifted everything away from those action-heavy decks, milling decks, those control, because first thing you need to do on your turn is play a maneuver.
Yeah.
Unless you can guarantee you're going to successfully play that action, or you're going to successfully activate that card effect. Otherwise, you're overturning 6. I've lost games because of my own old school wrestling match.
That's another drawback. Just no way out throwback from the classic days. Sometimes it does more damage than help, but.
And then old school cage match. So what this does is it eliminates effects that move cards from ringside. So whenever a chain heat stipulation, superstar specific, or unique card moves whenever a not printed. So if it's not any of these, moves cards from any ringside, the number of cards moved is reduced by 1. Yeah. So what this does is it doesn't allow you to use Steel Chain Shot to return itself, because this effect reduces that number by 1. So you're returning no Steel Chain Shots. Thrust Knee Lift, you can't put it on the bottom of your arsenal because it's reduced by 1.
Yeah.
Kidney Punch is a big one as well, where you can't return it. So it gets rid of a lot of that, but it hurts cards that aren't as overpowered, like Iron Will, roll out of the ring, shoot headlock, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah.
A lot of those recovery. I mean, even Candace Internet Icon reduces it by 1. Puppies reduces it by 1.
Yeah.
This one I think is a little much.
Yeah.
Just because it hurts a lot. It doesn't hurt Ready to Fight, which is nice, because then you can shuffle a full 5 and then you can return 1 maneuver back. What I recommend for anyone who's just playing casually is don't incorporate these cards into your ones. Yeah. Because then you could play just those action-heavy decks again. It's just, these are a little much.
Yeah.
I hope it gets thrown back.
We don't see them too much in our casual play area. At FunCon, like the top 4 decks, 3 of them had old school wrestling match.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a pretty popular card to just be aware of them. If you're new to Virtual, those are the 2 cards you need to be aware of. Old school wrestling match, old school cage match.
You want to go quickly over some events, objects.
Sure, yeah.
A big one here, a big one in the meta is backed by SmackDown General Manager Vicky Guerrero. It's a whole list of people. I can't pack it, but what it does is it protects your non-superstar specific maneuvers that aren't 0 fortitude but printed SmackDown. So what it does is it generates a reversal effect. They can't be reversed by non-damage 0 reversals, but or overshot, except manager interferes can reverse it. So what it is like you're running clotheslines at 12 for 13. Face stretch if you're playing it at 8 fortitude for the 8 damage. There's key lock is like +3 damage when played by a SmackDown or played by a tag team. So what this does is it generates a reversal restriction to it, so you're not. So really,
it's a play restriction. Not a
play restriction. Oh yeah,
it's a big difference.
Pretty much, they can a revolution of the mind.
Yeah.
Your stuff, your big hybrid reversals. This is a big kind of
even
play
smaller
choice.
cards like quick snap, quick follow through. Like they can't play elbow to the face to it, even though it's only a 4D high res.
Yeah. But like, or if you play that in Eddie Guerrero, they can't sidewalk slam it.
Well, you can't play back with Vicky and Eddie Guerrero.
On to the next card.
So 2 popular ones, and they're popular because they do not take up slots in your ring area, is Ruthless Aggression and Playing by the Rules Throwback. Pretty well if I'm building my deck and I'm at 10 pre-match and I don't know what else to put, I slip those in. Again, they don't take up slots. Playing by the Rules makes your face reversals -5 fortitude and your opponent's heal and run-in reversals +5. And if he has a no-show, he has to randomly shuffle 1 into his arsenal. Ruthless Aggression says if your opponent's a legend, which we saw a lot of at FunCon, starting hand size is +2. And if he ends his turn with an effect that does not come from a reversal card, like Rules Are Meant to Be Broken, Sacking, managed by Jimmy Hart.
Oh, WrestleMania. Through all these years.
You may put this card in your ring pile and then continue your turn. I'm really surprised we didn't see a lot of those at FunCon, but you never know how many legends were going to be there. Was there another legend? There is another legend card. Segway. The Heenan family is a faction. It has a bunch of logos on it. You're a member of the Heenan family. The biggest thing, your unique reversals are not affected by your opponent's card effects. So if you are a legend and you're running this card, suddenly your step aside, escape move, and break the hold, which are unique, can now no longer be plunged.
Well, that's if you're running the legendary defense backstage area card.
So basically, I think in like Devil's Favorite Demon, they counted as close to 20 unique reversals. So cards that can't be plunged, cards that can't be modified in any way. So it's a big boost to like.
It's modified by your opponent.
Yeah.
So they don't have RMS, and then any effects you control as a player can still modify the cards, which is way better than RMS.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good card. Legends love it. Another one that we see a lot in every deck, Making Your Escape. It's another card right up there with, I think, the old school wrestling match, an old school cage match that you should be familiar with in Virtual because it will save your behind. All players, first of all, in Hell in a Cell are blank until the start of their first turn. When Redemption is in your ring, it is blank. Once during each of your turns, you may overturn 4 or remove a pre-match card from your ring from the game, and then you're not affected by Hell in a Cell. There is no escape. First of all, until the start of your next turn, and he is not considered to have played a volley card on his last turn, and the effect cannot be reversed. So, really cool that it gets you out of a hard spot against some of these cards that make cards harder to reverse or stop you from doing things like playing volley maneuvers so you can play it in action or something from ringside on your turn. I've liked a few of the combos that people have been running with this, where your lower super value you can play Distractingly Devilicious, and then on your turn you can remove it from the game using this effect, and you can play cards on the first turn, so you're essentially stealing their turn. So that's when you're saying people aren't running Showtime because there's better ways to do it.
Yep.
That's one of the ways to do it, as long as you're both males. You can play Distractingly Delicious and get this. If you need cards in your ringside pile, you can overturn 4, because you just can, right? They don't have to have any of those cards in your ring area. They don't have to have played a volley. It's considered to have not, or you're not affected by those. So, you can overturn 4, and then suddenly you have a ringside pile that, if there are cards like that you're trying to get into your ringside, that you can pick up because of their effects. Right? So, yeah, I like it. Neat card. Permanent RMS, can't be blank, can't really be modified.
It's one of those ones where you don't need it for the effects, but it's like, how can you manipulate your deck?
Yeah.
Like, what's the theme behind it?
Yeah, and it's all about like using all the resources that are available to you, right?
So you can be using all the resources available. Drawing a blank is a fun little card.
Yeah.
So what it does is during your turn we have equal or lower fortitude, and you play a maneuver with blank text. So first thing that comes to mind for me is chair shot. Body lock's a great chain, but I love seeing like the maneuvers you never see packed anymore, like sit out power bombs and 3 for 6.
Body slam, like the back to basic move line.
Yeah, it's a lot of these older maneuvers that don't see play anymore. I had to actually trade for a whole bunch of these. Yeah. I was just using proxies. So when you have equal or lower fortitude and you play one, it cannot be reversed by non-unique reversals from hand or ringside pile. So it's like, yeah, the maneuvers aren't great, but, they're going to pack a bit of a wallop. Also, if you have a blank ability, so some superstars have blank abilities, you can choose to either draw a card if you have less than 10 in hand, or put a card from ringside on the bottom of Arsenal.
I think I prefer that effect almost to the first one, right? Because with the first effect, they're probably going to restricted use. They'll probably have at least one unique reversal, so it's going to take a few turns to kind of get the momentum going on that. I know a lot of people pair that with There's No Escape.
Yeah.
To give them their maneuvers a little bit of a boost, add some stun value, so when they do hit, they're extra painful. There was something else I was going to say about this card. It's only from hand or ringside, right? So you can play non-unique reversals from Backlash. So we had a debate about whether to pack their Going Nowhere Fast. It was funny, we were like, yeah, that card's kind of done, and then me and my buddy played a game, and we both played Drawing a Blank, and we both used Going Nowhere Fast. So we're like, okay, maybe it still has some validity as being in a deck. Yeah, but that's a fun little card. Again, ways to help you get on board when you're behind, making your cards a little harder to reverse. So, I like it.
Yeah, sorry. That one. That one's kind of. This is a really important virtual card.
This is my favorite. Was my favorite. I've kind of reined my horns back on it a bit. One of the big boys. When packing this card, you cannot pack pre-match cards with McMahon in the title. Overturn 6, and at the end of the pre-match phase, put one non-unique card from your ringside pile in your hand. So it's like giving them high fives, basically. Plus, when this card's in your ring, your opponent's non-unique, non-specific reversals deal no more than 1 damage. And it has a little bit of a bonus for WCW superstars. But that card is huge when you look at cards like Spinebuster for 6 damage, and Power Slam for 10 damage, and elbows and sidewalk slams for 2 and 3 damage. And when you can reduce that all to 1, it's like, so, like, I think this card gave a huge boost to volley decks. I know opening volley makes them not do damage to the non-multi ones, but this kind of protects the multi ones. So
when your opponent plays Frankie Takes Hollywood, giving all his reversals RMS, this card's kind of dead in the water. Yeah,
so have a card that gets around Frankie, right?
Search for Rest Hold with Tech in a Bottle.
Yeah, right, and play it with that false transition, right, to start right out of the gate, right, if that's a big concern of yours. And for high risk decks, like Overshot Your Mark, you can reduce it to 1 damage. So, yeah, it was a big favorite of mine. It's again one of those things where a bunch of people run it, and then you see less and less pain reversals, and then you don't have to run it for a while, and the pain reversals come back, and it's kind of like a swing. And I find that with a lot of these cards, right? Like, it's a swing.
And then with virtual as well, is they do a lot of revisions every year. Kind of if stuff's a little overpowered or someone found some loopholes with some superstars, they tone it back. That has happened with, I can't remember the previous card. Anyways, it's happened with this card. Interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund. It's a list of people that can't pack it. Oh, this is the old one in my hand. Speaking of revisions, I was going to use it too. Professionally printed. MakePlayingCards.com.
I think that's the old one.
It's the old one. Because it has the draw, discard 3.
Oh, it's not the FunCon promo one?
No, this wasn't a FunCon promo. Just the actions were.
Oh.
I'm new to this game. Game.
Really?
Anyways, what it does is
that is the old one.
turn up the heat, turn the tide. Good things sometimes happen. Who booked this match? Well-deserved push.
I wasn't listening to your list, but offer handshake, turn the
Offer
tide.
handshake. Yes, that was the other one. What it is they become unique. Your opponent cannot respond to it, and they cannot be reversed. So, cannot be respond to.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
Not cannot be reversed. Oh yeah, this cannot be reversed. I thought it was just cannot be
No,
responded
cannot be
to.
responded to.
Yeah.
So they can't restrict use of this area, getting rid of its effects. So cards like Offer Handshake, who booked this match?
Turn the tide.
No, not Turn the Tide. Oh my, I'm so bad at this game.
Well-deserved push.
Well-deserved push. Who booked this match? Offer Handshake. Those are great because they're going through. You're instantly getting that text.
Yeah.
Turn up the heat, turn the tide. It's great. However, those cards you play after it, they can still respond to.
Yeah.
They can still sidewalk slam. They can restricted use.
Yeah.
So it's really situational. You want to draw out those cards. What's great with those two cards is there's only one restricted use of this area.
Yeah.
So you're going to have one that is irreversible, but then you have to worry about those irreversible reversals. And that's the thing about virtual too, where
Sometimes making something irreversible makes it easier to reverse.
Yes. Which is, I guess it was kind of the case in Classic, because Don't Be a Douchebag that we covered last show reverses a non-unique maneuver that has a reversal restriction, which is generated through that. It seemed with Carlito Says that's not cool.
So if you're playing these, don't turn up the heats, turn the tides. Try to play a unique after them, because then you're eliminating Carlito, you're eliminating Douchebag. If you can throw a unique multi, like a whirlwind kick, that's 5 damage.
Exactly what I was gonna
Overhand
say.
chair shot, 5 damage. Suddenly, they almost have to play the restricted so that they can play normal reversals to it, because most don't have 2 sidewalk slams or 2 backhands, like a backhand slap and one thing to say or something. So if you can find that unique 5D for your either turn the tide or turn up the heat. I think it did water down turn the tide.
You're only getting one.
I'm saving my restricted for a turn the tide as soon as I see that, because Mean Gene also removed the if you're lower in fortitude text on turn the tide, so you can just play it when you're winning.
Turn the Tide, trademark finisher.
Yeah, it's like great. The Mean Gene card in the revision also lost its draw 3, discard 3, which I didn't notice until I actually played it and went to do it, and I was like, oh wait, that's not there anymore, which kind of stinks, because to see 3 additional cards never hurts. There's been a lot of debate whether it watered it down too much, but when you get hit with a unrespondable offer handshake or a who booked this match, you're like, ooh, that's really good. So I'm glad they're unique.
And Who Booked This Match is also in That's Value, which is a classic card.
Yeah.
So you could search for your one and you could play that first turn, either to make them discard 2 cards or you're drawing your 2
Or
cards.
whenever you need it,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, you only have 1 or 2 or 3 cards in your hand, pitch 2, now you can't stop my chain cards.
After WrestleMania,
Yeah,
Who Booked This Match? Okay, I'll draw 2.
yeah.
Like, that's huge. Like,
Yeah.
especially if you're the WrestleMania player, it's like my first turn. After this, I have 3 cards in hand to your none.
Yeah.
Let's play some Raw Deal.
Yeah, it's good.
You want to quickly visit, kind of just shoot on some last ones?
Sure. Flanked by Arena Security. Great card if you're worried about your opponent looking at your hand, making you overturn cards, or reducing your hand size. I think that, or moving cards from your hand or backlash deck. This card really saved me at FunCon. I played a Triple H deck that made my hand size like -6, and I just played this, and he couldn't reduce my hand size, so I got to draw my whole hand, and that was huge. There's a drawback if you have more than 5 Okay, after all pre-match plays, put random cards from your hand on the bottom of the number equal to twice the number of pre-match slots you have filled above 5. So that's only counts pre-match slots. So cards like Playing by the Rules, Throwback, Ruthless Aggression, they don't take up slots, which is great. So you can actually still have 7 pre-match cards in play and not have to face the drawback of that card.
I just want to go over. I'm just going to like bullet point. Diva Bikini Contest is a blank text, but it gives you 2 stun value, which is great if you want to do like backslides, inside cradles, stun value based decks.
Which I'm a big fan of.
Cheat to Win is one that was fun, where -1 hand size, you ace it to kind of reverse your opponent's reversal to your non-chain cheater action.
Yeah. I find you have to pair that with a superstar specific cheater card.
I loved it in Rattlesnake.
Yeah, because I think there are too many, or there aren't enough cheater actions that would really go with.
Premier WWF Superstar, they threw it back. They list all the Premier Superstars and their original remakes, and all their specifics don't take up a pre-match slot, and they can't play Break You. That's the thing with virtual pre-matches. You're not, if you want to work out around, I'm going to break you, you're pretty much not going to be hit by it. And because of the backstage area, there's no it's all about the game, there's no calling you out. There are a lot of those pre-match disruptions not there, so you're generally going to be guaranteed.
So, yeah, pre-match really sets the tone for the game. It's almost half the game. So if it does look overwhelming, that's kind of because it is, right? Like, this is really setting the pace for the game. Basically, virtual has turned it into allowing you to do what you want to do versus allowing your opponent to do what they want to do, and kind of see who does it better. And I kind of like that. You don't have to worry about every disrupting card in the game, and if you are, there are cards like Flanked by Arena Security that kind of slow those things down a bit. So.
And there's a title belt that also protects against Break You that we'll visit. I just have one more card I want to talk about. High Flying Style is like a total thematic card. It has a list of guys who could pack it who are pretty much your high flyers, cruiserweight style wrestlers, and then they started making wrestlers. It says you may pack High Flying Style on it. What it does is it makes your maneuvers with Rana in the title a high risk, so Hurricane Rana, the 9 for 10 throwback. Non-unique reversals don't do damage to your high-risk maneuvers. You're from the top rope, from the middle turnbuckle, cannot be reversed. And also in the backstage area card, there was a cruiserweight style action that makes your Japanese arm drags, your non-throwback Japanese arm drags, 0 fortitude, so they're 0 for 4s that can search for themselves. If you have 3 or less fortitude, they can only be, it's played as if it's unique. Yeah. It's a whole bunch to it, and so it adds a lot of thematic stuff. A lot of WWF classic cards we're looking at. There are a lot of managers. There's managed by Sonny, managed by
Mr. Fuji,
managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. You get, if there's a Classy Freddy Blassie card, because Virtual has a lot of those old WWF guys like IRS, Razor Ramon, $1 Million Man's already in it. Rockers are in the game. Yeah. So you could, if you're like the kind of that early 90s, 80s era fan, you could build decks that are pretty much all themed around it. And then you want to visit that.
Well, I just pulled out one random title belt just because tournament kits provided quite a few belts. I think there's at least a dozen or so virtual titles.
No, these aren't available for download yet. I hope they become available to the masses.
They have been out for quite some time, so I can see that happening soon.
Now, the text is available on Team Canada online if you go to the virtual set lists, but the images aren't available for these.
Yeah, so basically I just brought one out to say, hey, there's a bunch of title belts that do cool things, so go check them out.
And same with some guest ringside announcers. Yeah. They added a handful of those. I think they added 12 title belts, throwing back a lot of old ones. They made like a Raw US title and a SmackDown Intercontinental title, new tag team titles. So like the Raw and SmackDown tag titles, you can play together, like the unified tag champions.
Yeah, and the penny belts, the penny tag belts.
But a lot of these belts have effects. The one you had is probably one of my favorite ones, just for the thematic behind it.
Yeah, and each one does have a theme to it, right? So yeah, go check them out on TCO and give them a look. And that's pretty well the pre-match phase. We're going to do a card compare, but we'll save that for the next show because it was a mid-match that I picked out And really, we just kind of card compared every pre-match.
I don't know how long this was, but I still think it was shorter than the pre-match phase. This whole discussion.
Yeah. There were a few times where we were trying to run through what cards to do, but if you missed any of that, they're all available on TCO, so you can go back and look at them and see the text.
And if you're listening to this and shaking your head that we missed something, share it on our social media.
Yeah.
Make a reply to our Twitter, Facebook post, or if you're YouTube, bring it up in the comments if we missed something or made a mistake, because we're all about doing it right.
And there are a few that, I've printed 4 or 5 copies, but they're all in decks right now, right? Like, you had to dig out your Mean Gene and Tech in a Bottle, because mine are all in decks, so they weren't in my stack here. So I know there were 2 or 3 that we missed that are pretty popular.